You fucking sneaky bastard. I'm going to take your dork and nail it to the wall. I'm going to crush your boils in the meat grinder. I'm going to cut off your arm and shove it up your ice hole. Dirty son of a batch of lousy cocksuckers. You violated my fucking rights. This summer of beach country, a bunch of fucking ice holes.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash, Duckies and Bunnies Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, Lovecraft Country, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatontv.com. And finally, to hang out with us live all week long, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we play video games such as FIFA 21, host watch parties, and have special events. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, sometimes we cover movies that were big hits in the 80s or 90s. Sometimes they were critically acclaimed films. We've even done a few foreign films. But sometimes we come across a movie that may have touched like the heart of very few people, but it made a big impact. And this week is one of those smaller hits that secretly inside I've been praying we would cover for a long time. So Jason D decided to commission and fulfill my dream by making us watch the 1984 crime gangster parody film, Johnny Dangerously.
Hello, Fargan Iceholes. Thank you for taking my commission and doing the 1984 comedy Johnny Dangerously. Last year when I made the commission, I wanted to do something that was a little bit off the beaten path and would hopefully have as many laughs as so many of your other reviews do. My first thought was Death to Smoochie. However, that is a 2002 movie. Then I thought Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. However, something told me that Gene would make me hate that movie somehow, or tell me some disturbing story about being at a goth club and some girl trying to give him a buckwheat, so I decided to go in a different direction. Johnny Dangerously is a movie I first saw when it came out on video, and I rented it constantly. I loved how Michael Keaton's character broke the fourth wall, the creative ways of swearing without actually saying the word. Mary Lou Henner was beautiful. And finally, the Atlanta Genital Institute made me question if I was touching myself too much. I decided I wasn't. I know that this is not a perfect movie, and the repetition of some of the jokes gets a little old. However, this movie is endlessly quotable and allows the viewer to enjoy the mindless comedy for 90 minutes. I am really looking forward to your thoughts about this movie and hoping that Ash has a story about shelf paper with duckies to share. Thank you for all that you guys do. As listeners, we're totally spoiled by the amazing content you put out on a weekly basis, and I hope that you guys are thriving during these hard times. Gene gave a 5-wipe review once. Jason.
Well, Jason, I got lots to say. Okay, first, with Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, buddy, if you ever decide to commission that movie, I'm with you 100%. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It was one of the saddest stabbings I've ever seen in my life. I still, with the King Bee, say boat drinks on the regular. It's just a thing that we do with each other. Love that movie. Would love to do it for you. But beyond that, so many listeners have tried to open our eyes to a movie that we haven't seen, or open our eyes to a movie that kind of flew under the radar. And 9 times out of 10, that movie is straight dog water. But you, buddy, You did it for us here. You did a great service to the Shat fam and to the listeners for opening our eyes to Johnny Dangerously.
You know, we're doing these special reviews now, Jason, and Death is Smoochy is one of my favorite parodies, and I absolutely love it. So I think it would be okay if you want to commission that one too, because it's pretty fucking amazing. But I agree with Gene. I had never seen this one, and pretty glad you got us to look at it, Jason. And wait for my shelf paper story, because one's coming.
Give us all your money, Jason.
Please.
Well, Johnny Dangerously is a 1984 parody of 1930s crime and gangster movies. It was directed by Amy Heckerling, who did Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and stars Michael Keaton as an honest, good-hearted man who is forced to turn to a life of crime to finance his mother's skyrocketing medical bills and put his younger brother through law school. It features Joe Piscopo, Lou Henner, Maureen Stapleton, Peter Boyle, Griffin Dunne, Dom DeLuise, Danny DeVito, Dick Butkus, and Alan Hale Jr. Ash, Big D, we always ask about your memories of the film we're covering. We'll start with you, Big D. What are your memories of Johnny Dangerously?
My parents weren't big movie people, so it was usually I was watching the movies alone, occasionally with my sister. And even less did I have a connection with my father growing up, really. So he wasn't a big movie guy. He wasn't a big sports guy, but there were two things that he loved that he shared with me. He loved Mike Tyson, and this was early Mike Tyson because we were living at that point up in the Catskills in upstate New York, and Mike Tyson was a local kid who came from the local gym, Customato. He'd fight on Saturdays in his white shorts before he went to his signature black. So he got me into watching Mike Tyson. And the second thing he loved was mobsters, was the old time 20s and 30s. He would tell me stories. We would listen to like these audio tapes about Dutch Schultz, who was this gangster in New York. And there was this mysterious treasure that he had supposedly dug. So my dad and I would go out and with a metal detector and, we go through clues. And Johnny Dangerously ties into that because this movie was something we had in common. It was gangsters. It was funny. We would sit and watch it dozens of times together. So when this commission came up and I was going to watch it, I texted him and said, "Hey, Dad, we're doing Johnny Dangerously." All he said was, "That's a good one." Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So thank you very much for the commission. This movie was dear to my heart.
So we just had Mother's Day, and I was visiting my mom. She made a delicious lamb. We were talking about what we were doing with the rest of our weekend, and I said, "Hey, we're going to be recording Johnny Dangerously. It's this movie. This guy Jason commissioned it." And my mom and my cousin are both like, "Oh my God, we used to love that movie when you were a kid. It was so much fun." I have zero recollection of ever watching this movie. For some reason, I always thought it was a spy comedy. I get this one mixed up with like Ishtar and Spies Like Us. Had no idea it was a gangster pick.
Yeah, I don't think I had ever even heard of this movie until it was commissioned. And I got nervous when I saw the poster because it didn't look like it was going to be enjoyable. But I was more excited when I read the synopsis. I was a huge fan growing up of like the Mel Brooks parodies with, Robin Hood Men in Tights and Spaceballs and all those types of films. And I also adore Amy Heckerling. Just go back, please listen to our Clueless episode, our Fast Times at Ridgemont High episode. I mean, I think Amy Heckerling is an absolute genius of a director, especially these parodies that she's so good at doing. And so I was pretty pumped to watch this one.
So Big D, let's get to it. Roll that trailer.
You're from Saturday Night Live. You're Joe
I'm Danny Vermin. This chump was going to show you some previews for a new gangster movie called Johnny Dangerously. Check this out. Does this jerk look like a real gangster to you? He looks like Michael Keaton to me.
I love Johnny t-shirts. I love Johnny.
Believe it or not, everybody loves this guy. Broads love him.
I'm not wearing a bra, Johnny.
That makes two of us. Oh, you got what you had left, Ma.
His mother loves him.
I love him, but someday I'm gonna knock him on his...
We should spend some time together.
The DA loves him.
Say, 2 weeks in Puerto Rico.
You got fire. Verb.
The new torch singer loves him.
You got those. I like those on them.
Little babies love him.
Oh, wait.
The warden loves him.
Johnny, it's an honor to have you on death row.
Ah, don't be silly. Pleasure's all mine.
Even the Pope loves him.
Build yourself a new gym at the Vatican, huh?
Well, this is one guy who ain't got no love for this phony. You shouldn't hang me on a hook. My father hung me on a hook once. Well, Johnny's busted my chops for the last time.
Gee, you look like a terrific guy to me.
Oops.
Michael Keaton,
Joe Piscopo,
Danny DeVito,
Dom
Mary Lou
DeLuise,
Henner,
Peter Boyle,
Maureen Stapleton,
Griffin Dunne,
Dennis O'Connor,
Richard Dimitri,
Alan Hale
Ray
Jr.
Walston.
See Johnny Dangerously at a selected theater near you.
I knew somebody who went to a selected theater once.
Title song by Weird Al Yankovic.
The story begins in the year 1935. A pet shop owner catches a young boy shoplifting a puppy and tells a story via flashback. In 1910, Johnny Kelly is a poor but honest newsboy in New York City. Johnny's mother, Ma Kelly, needs an operation they cannot afford. Since the execution of Johnny's criminal father, Ma has supported Johnny and his younger brother, Tommy, who is fascinated by the law. Johnny gets into a fight with a boy named Danny Vermin and catches the attention of local crime boss Jocko Dundee, who offers Johnny a job. Johnny helps rob a rival nightclub belonging to Roman Moroni. Okay, guys, so if the first 18 minutes of this movie were a horse race, Johnny Dangerously ran out of the gate, fell flat on its face, broke half its legs, and shit itself in the process. It opens with a fucking Weird Al song. Listen, I love Weird Al, but unless you're UHF, don't open your movie with a Weird Al song. Then we have to suffer through this like pet shop scene with these lame animal jokes. Then we got child actors, which you guys know I fucking hate. I'm glad the podcast forced me to trudge through this to the good stuff. And Jason, I did this for you, and I'm glad I did because the movie gets much better from here. But I gotta say, first 18 minutes, straight shit.
Well, let me tell y'all what happened to me. So I couldn't find anywhere to watch this movie, and Jean was so kind as to provide a link. And I guess I did something wrong when I clicked on the link because the movie had this really high-pitched sounds, like the people were moving really fast. It felt like one of those flash forward scenes. And I was like, why is Michael Keaton's voice so high? And then I realized that it was set on 2 times the normal speed. And so it's just like, and I was like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. And so imagine that 18 minutes condensed into 9 minutes in hyper speed. And it was an experience, y'all.
You lasted 9 minutes?
I probably almost 10 before I realized like, oh, this is not a gag. Like, this is an error.
No, like in her defense, it's an old-timey flashback. So if you're looking at footage from 1910 that's stylized, you might go, listen, A Christmas Story did it for like a good 10 minutes.
That's what I was going to say, yes. Totally.
And it, so I was really nervous. I paused it. I went back and I actually rewatched the whole beginning again. So I got to see it twice, at twice speed and regular speed, and neither was good because the beginning was really rough. I'm not a fan of period pieces in general, especially from this time period. My period pieces I like dark and depressing, like Jane Eyre. And this one was a bit too happy, right? And so here you got this pet shop owner who's given this young whippersnapper some advice, and I was like, wow, this is gonna suck a lot, but it didn't, and I was pleased.
You know, like people who are in like abusive relationships or Stockholm syndrome, that when you have like things happen to you in your life, they can condition you in a way that just elicit an emotional response. If I listen to Lee Greenwood sing God Bless the USA,
you throw up. They
played that at my graduation from AIT. They played it a couple times during my service in the military. I get viscerally emotional. I cannot explain it. I'm like a dog who's been beaten and they see the belt come out. That's what happens to me.
You've been beaten into being patriotic.
No, I'm just saying like an emotional response comes out. Like it's like, oh, like I get emotional and teary-eyed. So this movie did that for me. It really did it for me. It immediately opens up, and yes, it's not funny. But when we get to meet Ma Kelly, and she's 29, and she's unfiltered with the way she talks, and Johnny's running through the apartment, up the stairs, and there's old people coughing and piano practices. It's burned in my memory. Those warm feelings of sitting on the couch with my dad, those happy times come out, even though it's admittedly not funny. I know this is nostalgia glasses and it's just tinting my view, but the movie opens up and I am just happy, smiling, and there's a warm feeling of joy that covers me.
I love that Big D's like flashback emotional cornucopia. It just sounded like he was describing the most feverish REM music video of all time. Like 29-year-old woman, boy running up the stairs, so many feelings in an apartment and there's animals. But no, Big D, I get what you're saying here because I don't remember seeing this movie, but this type of movie we all remember. There were those 80s movies that had these gags that was really the first time that you formed a bond between you and the adults in your life. When you were sitting on the couch together and you laughed at the same thing and you knew that like, you don't understand their world. They don't understand your world, but there was these moments that you kind of shared together and like, they were so rare that they became precious, right? I don't know the color of money when I'm a kid. I don't get it, right? But Johnny Dangerously, I would get, and my mom would get it, and my cousin would get it. And I had a similar experience with Worth Winning, another movie that a lot of people haven't seen. Please commission Worth Winning. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was Mark Harmon. There were like 3 different women he had to get engaged to. It was a bet, and he had to get each of them to engage. But of course, you know, what happens?
He falls in love.
Exactly. But anyway, Worth Winning, my cousin and I, we would just watch this movie over and over again, and we bonded over it. And you go back and you watch it, you're like, it's not that fucking great a movie. But to us, it's the greatest movie.
Yeah, and I really feel like this is the moment, Big D, that I receive your apology about Grease 2. Because that's Grease 2 for me. It's not only an amazing movie on its face, which I will stand by, but it's also a movie just like what you're talking about that I shared with, you know, a family member who made me feel cool, made me feel like an adult before I was an adult. And, you know, we had this like little secret. Like I used to always say that line of, oh my God, I almost died a virgin, you know, before I really even knew what being a virgin really meant. And it made me feel cool and made me feel older. And I think nostalgia porn is a real thing. I mean, there's a reason why shows like Stranger Things or these cash cows, because we all like to remember a time where we felt loved and respected for the first time, and movies can do that.
No, I agree that I was a bit harsh, but I don't think that I described anything in this movie so far as being wonderful or great. You actually like...
The parts of a flower are so constructed that very, very often the wind will cause pollination.
So I understand when
that was almost
nostalgic
harmony, guys.
When nostalgia can like blur your vision, and I understand how it made you feel, but it doesn't make it good. Johnny Dangerously is not an Academy Award-winning film, but we share that feeling. So I'm sorry if I shit on something that made you happy and feel warm
and was good. You're forgiven.
So the King Bee turned me on to Fargo season 4. I don't know if you guys have watched any of Fargo, but he swears this is like one of the greatest TV series of all time. But in it, spoiler alert, there's a kid who sneaks the gang into another gang's like clubhouse / hideout / casino / bar or whatever. I'm getting really amped up because I'm like, oh my God, like Fargo season 4 referenced little old Johnny Dangerously from 1984. And for people who haven't seen the movie, or if you need a refresher, the Dundee gang, which Johnny belongs to as a kid, this is like his first score, his first job. They walk into the Maroney Club, and Johnny's job is to sneak them weapons because they're going to get frisked when they go into the club. Let's follow this sequence of events. So the Dundee gang walks into the club, they get checked for weapons, and they're like, oh, they got no weapons. Okay, you can hang out. So they hang out. And then Johnny shows up with the weapons wrapped in newspapers and sneaks them to Jocko's men. And then Jocko's men pull their guns out on Maroney's men in their own club and basically rob the place. What the fuck? So what was the point of sneaking in the weapons if you're just going to pull them out anyway? Why not just walk in there with weapons? And then also Jocko's the fucking leader of the gang. What's he even fucking doing there? It's silly. It ends in Johnny using like fucking newspapers, like throwing stars. We weren't off to a great start. This made things worse. I was not sold on the movie at this point.
Well, listen, again, remember, this is aimed at multiple audiences. You had to get Johnny involved. He wasn't going to smuggle in something that actually had people lead to being killed or smuggling drugs, or maybe he had to beat up some homeless guy at the dock. You need to find something that Johnny could do to endear himself to the Dundee gang. And this service it. Nobody got killed, and he's a hero. It's his boy.
Yeah, but these fuckers couldn't help themselves. He's doing acrobatics. We had Big D. This is not an exaggeration. There was a fucking slide whistle in there.
There was.
Come on.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
Well, not only was there a slide whistle, there was some pretty abhorrent eyeliner. Was anybody else completely distracted by Michael Keaton's eyeliner on his eyes? I felt like he rolled out of a Rocky Horror Picture, sing along the night before, put on a gangsta costume, and found himself in 1935.
A lot of people asked, how did a little guy like Michael Keaton get cast as Batman? They're like, well, he can throw that cowl on. He's already got the eye black going. It's a fucking done deal. He's got those Adam West eyebrows. It's happening. But Ash, was Michael Keaton just on a lot of fucking drugs at this point? What is the fucking story there? And then I realized, oh shit, it's a parody of those 1930s movies. So I went back and I looked at Humphrey Bogart and all the other guys, and they had the same shit going on. This is old Hollywood. And so if you look at other characters in the movie who don't have Michael Keaton's eyes, which, by the way, gorgeous fucking eyes on Michael Keaton. Joe Piscopo, who's one of the ugliest people in the world, he's got eye makeup too. We just didn't notice because he's fucking Joe Piscopo and he had that goddamn ridiculous porn mustache.
But I think this only serves to remind us, Michael Keaton is a kick-ass actor who's brave. He did so many fun movies that we just forget about. Before this, he did Mr. Mom. It's not a traditional choice for an Academy Award winner.
Fun. Is that the fun film that we forgot about?
It was the movie that saved me from seeing Return of the Jedi because I was so scared that my mom had to take me to any theater nearby. And the only one that was showing another movie at the time was Mr. Mom, which then featured a fucking vacuum cleaner that was a shark and scared me even worse. So thanks, Mom. Thank you, Michael Keaton.
Then he did Gung-Ho, another great movie.
Don't know anything about it.
Oh yeah, everyone's favorite, Gung-Ho.
Listen, everybody out there remembers.
Keaton.
It's like some small local town where they're going to close down the auto plant, and the Japanese come in. So Michael Keaton is the local rep who goes to Japan to negotiate the deal. So it's like, fish out of water, culture clash between the Japanese workers and the Americans.
That doesn't sound problematic at all.
But fuck problematic.
Was he the tallest person in every room, and that was the gag?
No, it was one where it was immediate where the people came together, and in the end,
did he have to learn how to use chopsticks?
Shut up until you see it. It's actually pretty good. Then he did Batman. I mean, he went and did things like Pacific Heights, where he plays some kind of creepy. I think he's a cop or a killer in that one. He's in a lot of good stuff until finally when he won the Academy Award, and I really enjoy him. And I think he's a gem.
I like how that's the one movie.
Birdman. Bird Life or whatever it was.
It was Birdman. It was Birdman.
It was Bird whatever.
And that was a great movie, but there was a lot of career in there between Gung-Ho and Birdman.
I like that last episode. I mix up fucking Coppola and Scorsese, and you're yelling out Birdman, Bird Life. I don't fucking know. Listen.
This is the golden age of Shat.
With Ma's continuing medical problems, Johnny goes to work for Dundee full-time. Everyone knows that Kelly is really Johnny Dangerously, except for Ma and Tommy, who think he's a nightclub owner. Johnny learns that Jocko has taken on two new gang members, Danny Vermin and his sidekick, Dutch. Danny has lived up to his potential and become a total scumbag with a taste for using opera audiences as shooting galleries with his .88 Magnum revolver. As the two gangs continue to war, Johnny falls for showgirl Lil Sheridan. He becomes the boss of the Dundee gang and negotiates a truce with Maroney.
So right now, as the listeners are feverishly typing their emails, he was nominated for an Oscar for Birdman. He didn't win it, okay? He did win the Golden Globe, and that's why I got confused.
Oh, God.
I remember the acceptance speech. So he was nominated.
I'm fucking wasted. What's your excuse?
Oh, come on. Oh, Jesus. You guys don't know Gung-Ho, and I'm fucking up Birdman? Who cares? Whatever.
Yeah.
You expect too much.
The real travesty here is that we didn't know Gung-Ho. You're right. How dare we be a podcast host?
How dare you call yourself Americans? Well, Gene, at this point in the movie, we are introduced to probably the most memorable character from my youth, Roman Maroney. As a 10-year-old watching this with my dad, I thought he was the funniest shit I'd ever seen, because the way he speaks, if you haven't seen the movie in a long time, is he's speaking broken English. And what's broken is the profanity. So when I was a kid and I heard him saying things that just, I was like, how is he getting away with that? I didn't realize that the producers of the film were being smart. They had to show how gangsters talked. What was the gangster language? And you can't have F-bombs and threatening to kill people and sexually assault your rivals, you know? So they have him speak in a way. What?
You don't sexually assault your rivals.
Yes, he threatens to take off his penis, I think, and to stick it in his mouth. You fucking sneaky bastard. I'm going to take your dwark and nail it to the wall. I'm going to crush your boils in the meat grinder. I'm going to cut off of your arm and shove it up by your ice hole. Dirty son of a bunch of lousy corksuckers. You violated my fucking rights. This son of a bitch country. A bunch of fucking ice holes.
Oh my God.
Roman Maroney was my hero as a kid.
You're right, Big D. Between Maroney and Johnny as an adult, this is when the movie hits stride. So guys, if you're watching this movie and you started off and you have your doubts, please hang in there. Because when Michael Keaton hits the street, he's got this pinstripe suit. He's the adult Johnny. Everything changes about this movie. Suddenly, this movie is slick and it's clever and absolutely irreverent. I mean, you guys mentioned, Blazing Saddles, and other Mel Brooks films like Spaceballs. This is in that same vein. They will go there. If there's a place you don't think they'll go there. We get Dom DeLuise. He shows up as the Pope. Ma Kelly is like super fucking dirty. The whole movie just like on a dime, just fucking changes course and becomes one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Oh, and Gene, you mentioned Ma Kelly. Maureen Stapleton. She's a 5-time Oscar nominee. Okay. She's won an Emmy for lead actress. She was a Best Supporting Actress winner for Reds. She's fantastic. She's blunt. She's got that ability for old people to just say what's on their mind, and it comes across as just kind of cute. She carries around a piece of meat and a vibrator in her purse. She's got some of my favorite moments. There's the entire ashtray joke where, Johnny comes home. Ma, I made you an ashtray. She goes, I've been thinking about taking up smoking, and this cinches it. I don't know why. It's not that funny, but it's making me laugh. It's just how cute. It's heartfelt. And I really just love when serious actors, when they don't think a role is beneath them.
What was amazing is that you got all this talent on screen and they all were like so selfless about their screen time. Like they just lived in the minutes that they had, but didn't fight with each other for attention.
Yeah, and I mean, one of them, I think, is Mary Lou Henner. So she comes in this part of the movie, and she's got this giant musical number that she does. And it's so reminiscent for me of that big number at the opening of Temple of Doom, because it's the same time period, like the same style of woman. Like she's kind of busty, she's kind of dumb. But this number I thought was so much better. I thought Mary Lou Henner sold the shit out of the scene. I didn't know she was funny. And I found myself not annoyed at all about how much time they took with it. This was a really long chunk of time to dedicate to this introduction of her character. This, for me, was the point that I really started to like the movie, because it's a type of parody that isn't offensive to the material it's doing a parody of. And that is an Amy Heckerling thing. Look at Fast Times. Look at what she does with Clueless. She does parodies really well because she respects the source material. She isn't making fun of it. She's honoring it in a way by parodying it. And I think that makes it really charming. And this movie from here on out, I think is an incredibly charming comedy.
But what did you think of that outfit?
It was a box.
This was the one thing that bothered me about the movie, is that they only made Michael Keaton look good. Everyone else looked like shit.
Well, I think also this is the time, I think I probably do this once every 2 years, remind people that Mary Lou Henner has a special condition. There's only 100 people in the world who have 100% autobiographical memory. She's one of them. She can recall every single moment of her life. I'm sure that hefty bag, she remembers that to this day.
Which makes me feel extra bad, because up until we did the notes for this movie, I didn't realize that Mary Lou Henner and Mary Lou Retton were two different people.
One's a gymnastics Olympic
I expected her to do some like crazy shit, like gymnastics on the screen. I was like, she's a redhead now? What the fuck?
She was in the television version of A Christmas Carol.
Mary Lou Retton.
Yes, Mary Lou Retton.
Just tumbling and shit, or what was she doing?
Yeah, she was tumbling down like the main street. So you have seen her. Maybe your brain just kind of connected that, and you thought, bingo, Martin Scorsese.
Well, I'm glad they went with Henner in this movie because the sexual chemistry between her and I see what you did there. The sexual chemistry between her and Michael Keaton was fantastic. And when I think of ladies' men, I think of Paul Newman, I think of John Stamos, I think of Sean Connery, but Michael Keaton, we often forget he has incredible on-screen chemistry with women in this film. There's that scene where like all the women are hanging all over him and he's just completely womanizing this entire audience. And he gets asked, "How do you do it, Johnny?" Mutual respect. Like he's sleazy without being overly aggressive. And you mix in Mary Lou Henner and it's getting a little hot in here. I mean, I'll be honest, like the two of them, it was believable. They kind of had that, I mean, I hate to use a cliche, but that on-screen sizzle.
I just love that list there. Paul Newman, Sean Connery, Uncle Jesse from Full House. Like, I mean, what a...
You don't think Stamos is hot?
I do, but just like, what a random person to go for. Like, you could have said Christian Slater. You could have said so many people.
No, I guarantee you more people want to fuck John Stamos than Christian Slater.
Vanessa met him the other day. She said he's really nice, still looks great. He was in town filming the American Idol thing. Everyone at the airport loves him. He's a down-to-earth guy and still looks smoking hot.
Well, because he's a ladies' man, according to Eugene. But I will say, Michael Keaton, I think he's a total fox, man. I think he's sexy in this. I think he, by far, is the sexiest Batman that has existed so far. I think he looks like Batman. He's hot. And I thought it was perfect for this. And Mary Lou Henner, I mean, I think they're a fine match. But I will say it's not just her. I mean, that 1930s tux, that 1930s suit, it's also pretty boxy. Like the 1930s was just like a time where they didn't want to see the outline of people's bodies.
We're going back to those days, and it makes me very sad. Bring back skinny jeans.
Skinny jeans are still here. We're old. We can wear skinny jeans.
Well, Johnny's brother Tommy graduates from law school, unknowingly funded by Johnny's illicit earnings. He goes to work for District Attorney Burr, who is on Johnny's payroll. Meanwhile, Burr and Vermin conspire to kill Tommy. Johnny has Burr killed, but this leaves Tommy as the new DA. Vermin discovers that Dangerously is the DA's brother, and Tommy confronts Johnny, who agrees to turn over the evidence against himself to the crime commissioner, whom Vermin killed, framing Johnny.
So Tommy Kelly is played by Griffin Dunne, and I found myself pleasantly surprised. He was endearing. There was an innocence to his comedy, his delivery. It was great. I kept thinking of our complaints about Martin Short in Inner Space, that he's kind of annoying. He's got that one trick he does with the dance. I think that Griffin Dunne is a funnier, he could have been a better actor than that. And I wish we had swapped him out because we start to follow him and he starts off as this innocent Tommy. And, he's struggling with abstinence and he's fighting, his dirty urges to have sex and he won't come out and say it, So Johnny finally says, "I know what's wrong, Tommy. Come sit down. Let's watch this Testicle Safety Psa." And the PSA is called Your Testicles and You. And like Jason mentioned, it was from the Atlanta Genital Institute and it features a cartoon penis and balls and they're being seduced by some kind of bootleg Betty Boop. So the penis and balls, it's like lifting weights. He's trying to stay focused. And Betty Boop is like, ee, ee, and she starts like coming over, kisses him. And eventually the testicles explode. And it is comedy gold because Tommy's like, "That's it. I'm not dropping out of law school. I can wait." And he runs away and, Johnny's done his thing. So unexpected and just a little nugget within the movie that you didn't see coming.
For people who haven't seen this, you have to understand that they took full advantage of the power of film. Tommy goes over to Johnny's place, and it's like this opulent Art Deco apartment. And that he's making his money illicitly. There's these beautiful women all around, and there's just like marble and artwork. and Johnny's dressed all dapper and he's like, I got to show you something. And you're thinking, what is this thing? It's either going to be some horrible crime or it's going to be like the most amazing, like accumulation of riches you've ever seen, right? And instead he takes the room, pulls down a screen out of nowhere, opens up the only cabinet in the room, and it's just got a projector inside of it with only this film queued up reel to reel. How this scene is not universally known in the YouTube and TikTok era, I will never understand. For God's sake, there's a scene where balls are brushing their teeth. Yes. How is that not a GIF everywhere?
Right. Well, and like the perfectly placed hair on the balls. Like it's just these little bitty spurts. And it was absolutely hilarious. And what I loved about it is it has no context for the rest of the film. Like there's no way that if you were like describing this movie to me and you're like, okay, and then he takes his brother in the other room and he shows him a video about how your balls will explode if you have sex before marriage. Like, I mean, like, it would be like, what? Like, but it completely works. And I rarely laugh out loud in the films that we watch, but I did with this. I watched this scene like 4 times because it was so funny.
And educational.
I found myself wishing, because I know you hadn't seen it, I wanted to see your reaction, to see that coming. Like, you're just like, because you don't see it coming. There's no way anybody could predict that was going to come out. And even sitting with my dad, it wasn't kind of awkward. We kind of just laughed at it. You know, it should have been awkward, but it wasn't. But I got to take you to the concept here that's behind the joke, and it's something so foreign to me. Granted, I wasn't raised in a religious household. I still now haven't found a spiritual, let's just say, direction that has grabbed me. I'm open to it, so I'm not completely against it. But the concept of abstinence until marriage, it just blows my mind. I understand why religions push it, you know, because they want to have a little bit of control, and it's something that's only for those who get married. They want you to get married and have kids. But how could you be expected to pick a partner without knowing one of the most important things? Are you sexually compatible? I think there's got to be so many unhappy marriages for people who waited and then they realize that they have very different tastes. You wouldn't go buy a car unless you could test drive it. You might love pizza, but if you've never tried anything else, who knows? Maybe you like Chinese food. So I feel bad. I don't know how people do it.
I know that I planned to wait for marriage when I was a kid. And I know also that I couldn't. As a 40-year-old, I look back and I go, hey, 17-year-old me, like, was it really that hard to wait? And then I also remember that when you were 17, like the world was a boner. Mm-hmm. Any fucking surface was sexually arousing. Like I made it 17 years and I'm pretty fucking proud of myself for making it 17. I just think anybody who's expected to wait, like how the fuck do you even survive that? Because I wouldn't be able to get anything done. I wouldn't be able to live if I didn't have that, I don't know, release.
I mean, I never considered waiting. That was like never something that I thought I was going to do. I lost my virginity while wearing my purity ring. So like, wasn't real for me. I don't know. I think that part of it though is for like growing up in the house that I grew up in, which was so religious. Like we were taught that like my body was like a man's, like my future husband's. And so like I had to wait to give my body to him. And so I was like, fuck that. I'm going to give my body whoever the fuck I want to give it to.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so, and I'm also like way too impatient. Like, you know, that whole like delayed gratification, like never been a thing. Like I could never do like tantric sex ever because I'm just way too impatient for any of that. So it
is weird that in 2021, we value like efficiency and speed so much, except for when it like comes to sex, there's still like this antiquated concept that like taking longer is better or something like that. I'm like, listen, we're going to get it on. And I can get you off in 2 minutes. Do you really need to wait 11?
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly. It's like fucking, I think honestly, we should respect the person who can get off quickly because they're like winning the race.
Yeah, it's efficient.
Well, hold on. No, I think you're talking about something very different here. If you're talking about how long it takes to get off, like that's different because that just sounds lazy. But I'm talking about waiting to have sex with a person. I'm impatient about that.
No, it sounds hypocritical to me there, Ash, because what we're saying here, you couldn't wait a couple more years. Maybe I don't want to wait a couple more minutes.
See, and this is why if you two got married before you discuss this.
Right. We wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. Fuck, it doesn't work, kids. Go out there, have sex, try out the car before you buy it. try everything on the menu, and then decide whether or not you like Chinese food, pizza, steak, tofu, whatever.
And marry it or don't marry it.
I feel like Ash and I would be so busy like setting up like candles and like the right playlist that we would just end up falling asleep.
Yeah, and what words we would use to say, because, you know, who's going to use the bigger word? I mean, that's real foreplay, right? So
I would, or like which pages of Wuthering Heights we'd reach to each other before banging.
Or Jane Eyre, like the scene where she finds out he's blind when he comes out of the fire. Like, Can I just say that we're the only podcast that's named Shat and talks about balls and shit, and then also Jane Eyre? You're welcome, audience. We are diverse.
Well, Johnny is found guilty, sentenced to the electric chair, and sent to death row. When Vermin congratulates Tommy, Tommy notices that he has Johnny's cigarette case, and Ma Kelly sucker punches Vermin in the crotch. Johnny arrives on death row, where he receives a rock star treatment from the starstruck warden. As Johnny is taken to the chair, he assembles what looks like a Tommy gun from parts handed to him by inmates, and escapes in a laundry truck driven by Lil, arriving at the movie theater where Tommy is to be killed.
So the gag in the car, this is my favorite joke in this entire movie. So if you've not seen it before, they're in the car, riding away, escaping from the prison, and the police radio says, you know, if you're looking for a black sedan with 3 people dressed like da-da-da-da. And so they use shelf paper and they peel it off to turn the car a different color, and then they change clothes, and then they keep doing it and they keep doing it. And there's this great reveal where it's like Ducky and Bunny paper at the end for a nursery, and they're all wearing nun habits. And then it comes over the radio, you know, car covered in ducks and bunnies with 3 nuns driving. Like, it is absolutely hilarious. And I know Jason talked about that he hoped I had a story. We had paper like this. My mom is so Southern. Every one of our drawers had to have shelf paper tacked into it that was also scented. And so whenever we would pull out the drawer when I was a kid, like, you would get this wafting of, like, I don't know, gardenia or lavender. And it would be, you know, these little pretty purple flowers. And I used to yank it out because I hated it. And there would be another one underneath from like one that she had when she was little. So I totally get the shelf paper thing. And as a 10-year-old, like, if I'd seen it like you, Big D, when I was that age, I would have died laughing, because at 37, I found this so funny. I can't imagine what the 10-year-old me would have thought of this scene.
But I feel like Johnny Dangerously can't help itself when it comes to running gags. Like, that's the other criticism I have. Like, whether it's Ma Kelly continually needing medical care, and the doctor shows up, and then like it goes up in price little by little, or Maroney's malapropisms, I feel like they lose their charm at a certain point. And the one that really bothered me was Ray Walston. So from My Favorite Martian, like, he's that newsstand owner, and every day or so he gets hit in the head with a stack of papers, and he suffers another cognitive issue. So like, he gets blind, and then he's not blind, and then he's deaf, and then finally he gets amnesia. And I'm like, this is just one of those like bad 80s things that they did where like the whole audience is in on the joke. But it's like, a joke only works 2 or 3 times with me. After the 3rd or 4th time, I'm done.
Yeah, I think this is a problem that people like you and I have, though, because we're not as fun as other people in this way.
Yes.
Because I insult myself here too, because you know we're twins, and the problem is, like, it's like those people like Big D. I could see him getting Vanessa and them getting dressed up and going out to one of those murder mystery dinner shows where they go and they sit in the audience and it's audience participation. And then they know by the 3rd act that when the actor says New York City, they go New York City back to the actor, right? And in those situations, I want to just die. And I'm sure you do too, Gene.
Yes.
But other people with bigger hearts, they like this kind of thing, and the audience likes knowing the joke, and I think it's because it creates that relationship and there's this comfort there. And so that's what this felt like to me. I also found it really annoying, but I think that it's meant for those other people where it's supposed to be comforting, the audience is in on, and they're supposed to have fun, and I had hypothetical fun if I were one of those people.
I take offense to this. Gene Lyons is the one who fucking would dress up at Rocky Horror and say along with the lines. I wouldn't do that.
Different.
To be fair, I go to the Pleasure Feast at the Renaissance Festival every year. It's the same show every year, and I yell the same things every year. And when they say ribbled, you pound on the table. So I'm somewhat guilty of this. I agree, but it's a movie. It's different. I'm not in the. It's like stand up. Stand up. If I go see it live, I can get into it. I know Raj. He's a big fan of like stand up. When I watch it on TV, I'm like, I could care fucking less. I'm not feeling it.
No, I think what it did was it served a purpose in the 80s, especially as a connector between scenes. They weren't great at telling the story necessarily in an arc. It was more a series of pieces of bits. So these served as fillers in between scenes. Tommy is going to jail to see his brother, but how did he get there? Let's kind of make people forget where we came from. Let's throw in a scene of our friendly newspaper guy getting hit in the head. Poof, now we're at the jail and there they are. You forget. It's done. It's a connector. It's the glue that holds it together.
We got a request this week from one of our listeners, Rob Taylor, who said, hey, could you guys talk more about the movie making, about what the directors were doing, about like what was going on behind the scenes that made the movie? There you go, Rob. Mm-hmm. There you go.
We are not that podcast.
Well, Johnny shoots and wounds Vermin, saving Tommy. The governor pardons Johnny as Vermin is arrested. The story returns to 1935. The young shoplifter is round-eyed and is given a kitten as Johnny says, don't forget, crime doesn't pay. The kid goes on his way, and Johnny, dressed in a tuxedo, heads off in a limo with Lil. He looks at the camera and emits, well, it paid a little.
So the movie is taking on all of the gangster cliches. It parodies everything. And I think that end one is one of my favorite. We hear it all the time. How many times do we grow up and hear that crime doesn't pay? It actually does pay in a lot of cases. It pays up until somebody either gets killed or goes to jail. But there's a lot of times that crime, if stopped at the appropriate time, will end up very much like Johnny.
If crime didn't pay, no one would fucking do it.
I know.
Right.
Why did that lesson need to be told?
Well, no, because that's, again, we're talking about here story making now. The story arc of Tommy, or what carries throughout the entire movie is Johnny Dangerously trying to teach life lessons to the little shoplifter. And, at the end, you think it's going to be this big reveal that Johnny has turned the corner. But no, in comes the rest of the cast, and we see he kind of winks and goes, crime does pay. Yeah, we all know it. Why does everybody fucking lie and say don't do it? It's like sex. It's like this big group lie that we tell people to try to keep them in line. But in the end, we all realize it's bullshit.
This movie is a parody. Think about Jocko's gang. Like, how threatening are these guys, right? They have Christmas parties. Yes. They're never doing anything wrong other than robbing the other gang. Like, they're like the Omar Little of 1930s gangs. And I feel like this is more like a Broadway show than a gritty crime drama. So let's just lay that out here. This is supposed to be goofy.
This isn't The Wire.
If this was an actual mob movie, like, I don't know, let's say Goodfellas by the fine director Martin Scorsese,
yes,
then we might take it more seriously. But come on, man. It's fucking Johnny Dangerously.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, there's the scene where he's telling the group they're going to go legit. And he says, come on, guys, you got a dental plan. Hey, Tommy, how many hats you got? He's like, hey, do you get to go see your mother in Norway every year? And they're like, yeah, Johnny, we do. I hope our audience goes out and finds it and watches it and see if they agree or if my nostalgia glasses have tainted this movie in a positive way.
Now, if you have a hard time finding it, you can hit us up on Twitter or email us at hosts@shatthemovies.com. We can help you find this movie.
Crime does pay.
Now is the time for our wipe score. The wipe score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your respective bums. Zero Wipes is a perfect movie. It is Michael Keaton in a pinstripe suit with his gorgeous eyeliner walking down the street in New York, or maybe it's Chicago, looking dapper as hell. And 5 Wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie. It is Joe Piscopo with his 88 Magnum executing an entire opera house full of patrons. Ash, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Johnny Dangerously?
I liked this movie. I was surprised, but I did. And it reminded me a lot of those films I mentioned in the beginning. I have said repeatedly that I loved Robin Hood Men in Tights growing up, and I could see how this would be like Big D's Robin Hood Men in Tights, something that he quoted all the time and that he watched all the time. And I totally buy that. And I don't know why I didn't see this movie sooner, but I'm glad to have it because these are the kinds of movies that I'll eventually like watch with my kids one day. And what I like about them is they're parodies without being mean. They're comedies without being raunchy. And here's the deal. I love raunchy comedy. I think raunchy comedy is awesome. I think it's really fun. But sometimes it's nice to mix it up. And this kind of like lighthearted, cute, funny movie was enjoyable. And I thought it was a too white movie for me.
Well, Ash, keeping consistent with our twinsies status, I got to agree. 2 wipes on this one. Listen, this isn't Blazing Saddles. This isn't Spaceballs, but Johnny Dangerously has that same Mel Brooks-ish, like fevered delivery and outrageousness that makes it a fun watch. Like I said, the first 18 minutes, they're pretty bumpy. But once Michael Keaton hits the screen as full-blown Johnny Dangerously, you can't help but smile. I challenge anyone to not enjoy the latter half or 3/4 of this movie. It's solid. It's above average at 2 wipes.
I agree. I hate to have all of us in line with this, and I'm surprised actually we're there. But for me, it's a 2 wipe. It's better than average. And last week we said a lot of the films we try to balance. Is it a good film? Is it a bad film? Is it a fun film? Is it a not so fun film? For me, I think this is a well-made film. The cast is talented. Everyone's caring. I think it's fun enough. And then you mix that with a little dash of nostalgia. And for me, this is a 2 wipe film. I'm going up to New York in a couple of days to see my family. And I think I'm going to sit down and watch this with them. And maybe I'll get a little soundbite on my phone from my dad giving you a quick, giving you his 2 cents. But for me, 2 wipe. And thank you very much, Jason, for the commission. It brought up a lot of good memories. And I think that's what this podcast is all about. So a lot of times our final rank scores don't make sense in where they fall, but I think this one does. With a 2, it ties it in the 92 spot. With Beverly Hills Cop, The Blues Brothers, Pet Sematary, and Tommy Boy. So it's in that range of movies that are enjoyable, they're fun.
Fucking Pet Sematary, I would never describe as enjoyable or fun. A kid cuts someone's Achilles tendon and is murdered by a truck. Well, he's murdered by the truck first, and then he is re-murdered.
What I liked about Pet Sematary, though, is that Stephen King really stretched his creative legs and went with the old Indian burial ground, which I don't think we've seen before in a horror movie.
I thought you were really going to defend it. You were shady as fuck. This is why I love you. That was amazing. I was so pissed for a second. I'm like, what the fuck, Gene?
Big D, I know that listeners had a lot to say after our Color of Money episode. Any feedback?
Oh boy, do we, Gene. But Gene, before we get to that, I have a couple of things I want to touch base on. First, we got a very generous donation from Sarah Spain this week, not even tied to a commission. So Sarah, I want to say thank you very much. I then also want to make a correction. Jody G, who commissioned one of our movies recently, is commissioning another movie later this year. I was referring to Jody as she. Jody is actually a he. And Jody reminded me of this by saying, hey, Big D, I do have to say, although I get it all the time, I am in fact a male. As a military man, you likely know the origin of the name Jody, but it is definitely less recognized as masculine nowadays. And he is right. In the military, you would sing cadence as you were running about Jody. So, while you're not at home, Jody's on the phone, Jody's with your girl. Jody is the one while you're deployed or you're out in the field. That's home taking care of your wife. So, Jody, I do know you from those songs. Thank you for the support. And again, sorry I won't make assumptions in the future. And Gene, you mentioned a movie we did, The Color of Money, and there was something that happened in there that had a lot of our listeners immediately typing feverishly on the keyboard and calling in. So the first one comes from Fletcher.
Hey guys and Ash. This is Fletch down in DC. Love the show. Love the pod. I got a guy here who we just listened to the Color of Money episode. He had a problem with some of the stuff you were saying. Hold on for a minute. Listen, you don't understand. Shat the Movies never gets my recommendation anymore. That podcast was perfect. I was going to make them big stars, but now I'm going to run them out of the business, and let me tell you why. Shat the Movies ruined one of Wolf International's most valuable assets, my reputation as a podcast connoisseur. For 5 years, I sang that show's praise. I told my family about it. I told my friends. I told my doctor. I told strangers. I spent hundreds and thousands of minutes of my life on that show. I was going to make Gene, Big D, and Ash big stars. And let me even be more frank, just to show you that I'm not a hard-hearted man. That's not all about me. That podcast was beautiful. It was fresh. It was entertaining. It was the greatest piece of pod I've heard, and I've listened to them all over the world. And then Gene comes along with his olive oil voice and his Persian charm, and he says Martin Scorsese made Godfather 2. And then to make things even worse, Ashley echoes the same idiotic statement at the end of the show. They threw it all away just to make me look ridiculous. And a man in my position can't afford to be made to look ridiculous. Now you get the hell out of here. And if you tell that Goomba King B, if he tries any rough stuff, you tell him I ain't no band leader. Yeah, I heard that story.
Wow.
Incredible.
Oh my God. So for anybody who fucking doesn't know anything about movies, Martin Scorsese did not direct The Godfather 2. He did direct Goodfellas, which has the same letter that starts out. And the best part about it was I explained to people, I was like, listen, guys, I meant Goodfellas. And they're like, yeah, Godfather 2 is very specific.
Because you added the 2.
Yeah.
Because he didn't just say Godfather. You named the sequel.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Ray Liotta, Godfather 2.
So normally we each serve as kind of like the check on each other, right? Like when Gene said that was Jimmy Smits and Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I was like, are you fucking crazy? It's Jimmy Smits. This one I let go because of how Gene sold it. Gene just didn't say Martin Scorsese. He said, when I was growing up and my cousin Pej and all of the art film connoisseurs would tell me, no, that's not Martin Scorsese's best film. That's not it. I was like, wow, Pej, I said, I've been living a lie. It wasn't Coppola.
I blame Pej.
So I just shut my mouth because you were so passionate.
What was funny is that morning when you released it, I was looking at Twitter and I was like, who the fuck said anything about Godfather 2? And then I went back and listened to the podcast. I was like, I did. I said something about Godfather 2.
And what's crazy is when you said it, I heard Goodfellas.
Thank you.
And so, like, I'm not joking. And so I did the same thing. I look and I've got like 40 Twitter notifications. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I open it and I'm like, we didn't fucking talk about The Godfather Part 2. And then I'm like, holy shit.
Like,
we didn't say Goodfellas. And I even repeat The Godfather Part 2. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It was great because a lot of times, like, we see our numbers, right? So we know the audience is out there. We can see, you know, we're again closing in on 9 million downloads total across Shat. So we know you're out there, but then you don't. A lot of times people are like snipers. They're hiding in the high grass. You don't see them. And then you just say Scorsese, boom! Everybody pops up at once and starts lobbing grenades. We walked into a VC ambush. That's what we did. We need to do that more often. You know, like say like Michael Keaton won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for Bird Person. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's the most successful TikTok I've ever made.
Yes.
Like my mea culpa TikTok.
Yeah, oh my God, the TikTok was pretty great.
Yeah, it was really good. So this was such a big topic that another one of our listeners, Teddy, called in, and I got to share his thoughts.
Well, how you doing, guys? This is Teddy again. I just got through listening to the Color of Money podcast episode, and I'm trying to keep my composure here. Gene and Ash.
Yes, Teddy.
You guys called. You guys said that Godfather 2 is a Scorsese film, and you said it 3 times. That is a Coppola film, and you said it with such surety.
Yes,
with such surety, you had me questioning if I was wrong. I had to Google that. No. Francis Ford Coppola did Godfather 2. Not Martin Scorsese. What are you guys doing? I'm so mad. But I love you guys anyway, and I forgive you. But there's a difference between Coppola and Scorsese. Okay, guys, let's not do this anymore. I turned red a bit. I was boiling. Okay, love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Oh God, we love you too.
So my favorite Twitter response that I got to do during this entire debacle was when I tweeted back and I said, "Do you mean the maker of fine wines, Francis Ford Coppola, also made a motion picture?"
Again, I heard Goodfellas. I don't know what happened. I heard fucking Goodfellas, and then I said it, and in my head as I was saying it, heard Goodfellas.
More than that, I heard the pain in Teddy's voice.
Yes, that was me.
Sorry, Teddy.
I was questioning things I'd known, my previous beliefs. I questioned everything.
Yeah, you were outnumbered 2-1. What are you to do?
Teddy, I felt your pain. Wow. I mean, I think we just gotta try to let this one go.
We now clearly need to do an episode on The Godfather Part 2 for free for the entire audience as a bonus episode.
So, Gene, we got some others. We're going to do it next week. And keep them coming, everybody. It's nice to hear from the audience on a normal basis. It shouldn't take a major fuck up like that, but it's nice to hear from you. But in next week's film, the Los Angeles Police Department officer, Dennis Peck. The Los Angeles Police Department officer, Dennis Peck, is a divisive figure loved by those who are loyal to him and looked upon with suspicion by others. His disreputable behavior and dubious finances arouse the suspicion of internal affairs, and Sergeant Raymond and his partner are assigned to investigate. When a series of witnesses are murdered, Avali realizes his life is in danger, along with that of his wife. Commissioned by Darren P., came out in 1990. And I don't remember seeing this, but I remember the box cover at Blockbuster.
I like this string we're doing now of adult 80s and 90s movies that were meant for adults that we didn't really get to watch as kids. It's kind of exciting. I'm were they as naughty as I thought they were? Because I remember the cover of this. It looked very intense.
We learned from Tequila Sunrise that they are.
That's what I was thinking too.
Well, thank you, Jason, for your commission. Thank you, Darren, for your commission. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us anytime at hosts@shatthemovies.com or call us at 914-719-SHAT and leave a voicemail about what a terrible job everyone but Gene is doing. You can also support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. And a big thank you to everyone who's commissioning movies. Big D updates us on a daily basis on the commissions rolling in. You guys are amazing beyond our wildest dreams. We really, really do appreciate it. Wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Ash Schlafly, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
I think most people want to be bad. It's because it is bad.
Why we have cops?
Except the cop's the guy who wants to do it with his own.
Don't move. Hands up.
Internal Affairs is the most important division on the force. We have to be better than the other cops.
What do you think he's doing?
Could be a lot of things. I want you to kill my mother and father.
What?
You go after Dennis Peck right or wrong and you don't get him, you're dead in the department. And if you do get him, it could be even worse.
All right.
in trouble, aren't we?
You know anything about this kid, Raymond Avila? You have a very pretty wife, don't you?
Do you have to kiss every single person at the party tonight?
A little skinny for my taste, but they say skinny ones give good.
Hey, Sergeant! What are you going to talk to me about?
Who'd you have lunch with?
Who'd you have lunch with?
Hi, Raymond.
Do you have enough for a formal complaint?
No.
Then shut up.
All those friends you have on the force, you don't have them anymore.
Police officer!
Richard Gere.
I'm gonna take care of things, don't worry about it.
Andy Garcia.
He's a dirty cop. You testify against Dennis Peck, we'll grant you immunity.
Did he contact you?
Lock the door.
Are you all right?
Yeah, lock the door.
Yeah!
Don't say anything.
Take it off!
Hi, Raymond.
Internal Affairs.
Can I trust you?
Of course you can trust me. I'm a cop.
That's a good one.